Now boarding our first class Ultra Gold passengers. Welcome into Other People's Shoes, the podcast that takes you on an extraordinary journey through the lives of others, where empathy knows no bounds. Your host, Neil Matthews, is absolutely thrilled that you're here. Please take your seat as we're about to take flight into season 16. Be sure to hold on tight, because Take Flight isn't just about the skies above. It's about the depths within. We'll dive headfirst into the stories of those who faced turbulence and yet found the strength to rise above it all. So grab your headphones and get ready to soar with us as we launch into season 16. Thank you for flying with us. Buckle up and let's take flight.
That's right. Welcome in to season 16. As Jessica so kindly pointed out to us, I hope your tray tables are in the upright position because we are truly going to take flight. Welcome in. I am so excited that you're here today. I can't even hold on to the excitement. It's coming out of me, and hopefully it's going to be coming out of you this season too, as we dive deep into some crazy stories, some amazing stories. And oh, by the way, there's also a birthday this month. That's right. The show is turning 5 years old. My little show gets me emotional every time. I know you guys think it's crazy, but I do think about it very much like a person. 5 years ago, this didn't exist. 5 years ago, I think I was a different person. In fact, I can honestly say I know I was a different person. And the amazing shoes that we've been in have shaped me and encouraged me and broke my heart and mended my heart. And every time I sit behind this microphone and I push that magical button that says record, it transforms me and it takes me to an amazing place. So I hope you're ready. I hope you're strapped in. The seatbelt sign is clicked on and the captain, me, is saying, let's get ready to take flight. Join my new friend and welcome my new friend. I'm so excited to introduce her to you. She's my new friend, Marin. Marin, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great and I'm so excited to be here.
Taking flight. Now, I got to ask right out of the gate, have you ever had a fear of flying?
No. Actually, I did a lot of flying with travel volleyball. We went all over the United States and even out of country. There was the initial fear maybe of taking off. No fear. I think it was all pre 9/11, actually. There was none of that extra fear there.
Now we're in this season called Take Flight, and it's invoking all of these flight memories for me. There will be many more to come. Stick around for that. Marin, help us with this, because I love to lead off truly every show with this question, and that's this, is what style of shoe do you love to wear?
I love flip-flops.
Okay, being the California girl that you are, it's flip-flops all the time? Okay.
Flip-flops or barefoot.
Oh, man.
I know my husband can't handle it.
No, that's probably why I wear shoes all the time, is the bare feet thing. I just got done teaching not that long ago our 4th and 5th graders at church, and the very last lesson I get to teach them on is Jesus washing the disciples' feet.
Yes.
Which is a terrible story, I think. Awful. Like, that truly shows you how much Jesus really loves is he washes their feet, especially in ancient times with no Nikes, flip-flops hanging around. Actually showed the kids one of my bare feet as an analogy of how intricate and it was gross. And I felt so embarrassed and I quickly put my sock back on. It was too much vulnerability there. So help me with this. So is there a style of flip-flop? Is there a color choice? Or are we just thinking like some Birkenstock? Help me with that.
Brown for brown outfits, white for white. Got to be color matching.
Okay, so there's a lot of them.
Yes.
Is there 80 pairs of flip-flops?
I have 3 girls as well, and I've kind of passed on my shoe fetish. So you walk through our washroom and you have to crawl over 80 pairs of shoes. Yes.
This is going to get me in trouble. We have a 2-car garage.
Yeah.
That was the rule. If we have a 2-car garage, both cars had to be able to park in the garage.
Yes.
Exactly that. My wife drives the SUV. I drive the little sedan, and we park in the garage. If you get out of the SUV and you walk towards the laundry room door that leads in and out of the garage, there is a minefield of shoes.
Yes. Yes.
And I want the record to show and people to know those are not my shoes. I have to hopscotch over. Well, no, they're all inside.
Oh.
They're too good to be outside. They need to be inside where they're protected and safe. But I have to jump over her shoes, and I have tripped over her shoes more times than I can count. People will not believe me, but I should post some pictures to social just to prove my case for Team Neil. So help me with this. When you saw talking about this Take Flight series and we start talking about this, what for you did that invoke?
It reminded me of my journey with OCD, which is obsessive compulsive compulsive disorder. And throughout my life, I've had a lot of turbulence with OCD. And I've also had some clear skies. It's gone back and forth, lost hope at points. But through my last episode, God just really reached down and picked me up and told me, I'm going to be your pilot from here on out, and I'm going to get you to your destination. He's just revealed himself to me in numerous ways, calmed and soothed my fears, spoke truth to me so that I'm able to hold on to those things that he's done for me and take them into the future and know that if OCD strikes again, I've got my pilot in the pilot seat where he needs to be.
Love it. Love that you're weaving in our season with your story. I mean, that's amazing. That's so good. As I mentioned to you in the green room, and I'll mention to others, we've had a young lady come on, Megan Newkirk. I had to think of her last name because she's an author. We got to give some first and last because it's such a good thing to do. And she wrote a book called Loving Naomi. It's on our Books That We Love page for those that want to check that out. It's a great book. She actually sent it to me. Megan shared with me multiple times that her OCD isn't necessarily a germ thing. It isn't necessarily an organized thing. It's the intrusive thought thing. In fact, she tells a story. She was working with her dad one day and she saw a hammer sitting next to him and she thought, I should smash him in the head with a hammer.
Yes.
And you look at Megan and you think of this sweet, okay, she's not that sweet. She went to North Carolina State, but for the most part, fairly sweet young lady. And you think there's no way somebody that kind, appearance-wise, never met her face to face, could do such a thing like that. Help me understand. Is that where you're at or is yours different than hers?
So let me explain first something that I looked up online to help me explain OCD. It's called the doubting disorder. So something that you are 100% sure of one moment, the next moment you can doubt 100%. Just like Megan may have said, I would never, ever hit my dad over the head with a hammer. The next second she's thinking, oh my gosh, I have this intrusive thought. What if I actually did? And those thoughts don't go away. It's like a merry-go-round that goes round and round and round until you disprove it. And how do you 100% disprove that you're not going to hit somebody over the head with a hammer? I mean, those intrusive thoughts are so bothersome because you can't prove it 100%. You have to tell yourself and just trust it. No, that's not who I am. Yes, I actually can relate to that a lot. My OCD thought patterns revolved around abusing my children and violence. I thought that anything that happened on the news that I saw that was evil or terrible acts, I thought I was going to become that next story by something that the devil would drive me to do. Satan's whisper was right there in my ear telling me he would drive me insane without food or rest because I couldn't eat because these thoughts were just so intrusive. I couldn't sleep. I started getting a tick in my face because I was so sleep deprived. The whisper was, I'm going to drive you so crazy that you're going to act in a way that's not normal to you. How do you prove that that's false? For me, the last news story I watched before this episode hit was about child abuse. So all of a sudden I see myself as an abuser. My children were 1, 3, and 5. I'd parented my oldest for 5 years, never had any worry, never had any concern about any of these issues. And all of a sudden, I can't prove to myself that this isn't going to happen to me because I've been driven crazy. I made rules up for myself. You can only tickle your child with one finger. You can't touch your child when you're wiping their bottom. Your hand has to stay on the wipe. You can't accidentally touch them when you're drying them off. Your hand has to stay on the towel. They can't sit on your lap. You can't buckle them into their car seat and touch their private parts because that might be leading to abuse. These things were just so pervasive and so bothersome. I would start dry heaving because I was so afraid of these things coming true. Finally, after months and months of extremely careful living, I was able to convince myself that the devil could never make me or force me to be anything I didn't want to be or to do anything that I didn't want to do. At that point, I felt like I was in the pilot seat of my life. I had to prove for myself that these things weren't true. It wasn't until later, my next episode, that I learned that God needed to come in and be the pilot of my life and that God would help me if I turned to him and I just told him everything that was bothering me, he proved himself to me that he would come in and he would prove these things wrong 100%.
I got to be honest, it's way different than Megan. We didn't get that in depth into her parenting. I'm trying to delicately ask this. I'm 43. I don't know how old you are. I was in the 4th grade when someone told me, hey, Neil, you have dyslexia. And that kind of rocked my world. That changed how I lived my life from there forward. Once I quote unquote was diagnosed, it helped me understand that I'm not learning like everyone else. I'm not understanding like everyone else did.
Right.
Was there that type of diagnosis for you? Did you ever get one? Did it change anything for you like it did for me, or help me understand that maybe a little bit?
Anxiety was always there since a childhood, masked itself underneath labels such as a worry wart, somebody with an extremely sensitive conscience. My parents thought maybe I just needed extra reassurance. Didn't have these abusive thoughts since childhood because, of course, I was a child and I wasn't taking care of anybody. My thoughts revolved around germs. My thoughts revolved around religion. Was I going to heaven or hell? When I got into my adult years and I had this fear of abusing my children, I didn't know yet that I was OCD. I didn't have that diagnosis to tell me, hey, these are normal thoughts for an OCD person. These are struggles that are written down in books. They have a name. This is normal. I was thinking, oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? These are not normal thoughts. Maybe I'm going to do these things. I lost a lot of hope. I was so fearful. I didn't want to do anything to my children. I'd rather something terrible happen to me than something terrible happen to my children. I withdrew from my children a lot, and I had my husband and my sister and my parents taking care of them because I was just fighting the thoughts. That was all I could do. I couldn't function throughout the day. Then when my second adult episode hit, I ended up getting that diagnosis and things started to click. Still had those thoughts of, oh my goodness, what if I kill someone or what if I'm abusive? A book about a man who actually had OCD, who's a doctor, and he describes all the fears that OCD people normally have. And I read the book. It was like reading all my thoughts there in a book. And it was very freeing, very healing. Then I could turn and I can say, this is a normal OCD thought. It defines the OCD. It doesn't define me.
I love that. I love that at least nowadays, it seems like there is help that there didn't used to be, at least when I was a kid.
Right.
I do kind of mock the kids that have the weed allergy because I don't remember that as a kid. I just don't. I don't remember anybody having ADD. I don't. I don't think that was the thing when I was a kid. I think the biggest label I remember, I mean, and maybe that's the reason why I remember is because it affected me, was dyslexia or learning disability. I remember those things. I don't remember people struggling with OCD. I don't.
Yeah, it was a very internal struggle. It's not something that I talked about. In fact, I kept it so secret that my own siblings didn't know that I had it until my 30s. When I had my first adult episode, it was very outward. I couldn't hide it. I couldn't function. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My second episode, very internal. My mom was telling me, hey, you're doing great. You're doing a lot better than last time. This time it's not as bad. And it was a lot worse, but it was internal. I could function and do the outward things that I needed to do. The thought processes were just very overwhelming.
What leads to the diagnosis? Does a book lead to the diagnosis? What does that?
I went into a psychiatrist and they had me fill out a questionnaire of what kind of thoughts I struggled with. And my thoughts were all grouped underneath the OCD thought, the fear of germs, the fear of touch, the fear of violence, abuse, things like that. I answered so many questions in that category. She was able to tell that I was OCD.
How does that work when you meet your husband?
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
I'm being a little bit funny just to have some levity, have that problem sometimes. It's called a Navin in our church circle. For me, like, I'm wondering about that. You mentioned the one that jumped out at me right out of the gate was touch. And let's face it, if you're going to date somebody, you want to hold their hand. You want to hug them. You want to kiss them. You want to be Hallmark movie with them.
Yes, right.
How does that work?
So in the middle of my flight story, which would be the college age years, I had clear sky moment for 10 years. I was OCD free, unexplainable, unexpected. I had a healthy mind. I was able to juggle multiple responsibilities. I was able to handle stress. Like I said, it was at the beginning of my college days. I decided to recreate myself. I'm going to be this strong, confident woman. I am tired of that wimpy, fearful kid that I used to be prior to this. I met my husband during those 10 years of health. We got married. I played collegiate volleyball, got my liberal arts degree, and I juggled that all with confidence. Then we had 3 children, and it's when my youngest turned 1 that OCD came back. So I didn't have the fear of touch. I didn't have the fear of germs when I met my husband and we were starting our relationship. When I was in the thick of it, that was definitely a struggle for me. Any thought of abuse of my children would turn me off, not only to any relationship with them, but also any relationship with him.
Wow. I'm not a mom. Not last time I checked, still a dad. In being a dad, I've always felt like moms had to be the more nurturer. I think God wires women to be more nurturing in nature than men. That's sexist,
absolutely.
I know, but that's how I feel. So that's my perspective. Deal with it. Did you find it a true struggle to be that nurturing, loving, not only spouse, but then even mom? How so?
Like I said, I couldn't even have my kids sit on my lap without feeling like I was abusing them. I remember a particular instance where my husband was sitting in the other room and watching me, and I had the kids all around me, and I told myself, I'm gonna sit with my youngest because she needs my comfort. I'm gonna put her on my lap. And all I could do is tell myself this is normal touch. This is normal touch. I'm okay. This is normal touch. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I don't know how comforting that actually was to my youngest. I feel like because it happened when my youngest was 1, which is a very needy stage, they need their mothers. They need that comfort. They need that connection. And I feel like because it happened during that stage, there may still be some need for her to connect with me that maybe wasn't given to her when she needed it.
Does that just eat you up inside?
You know what? I've come to terms with it. I've come to give myself grace that I did the best that I could in a situation that I had no idea what was going on. Have moments where I think, what would I do? How would I do it differently? I think that I gave it the best that I could.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much OCD is hanging around in Marin's life right now?
Right now, I would say I'm optimistic about my future. My flight is clear skies again, but I would still say it's about a 5. I had a devotional as soon as I booked this podcast that the devil was going to be coming after me when you say yes to Jesus and that he's going to come after you hard. And the fear just started rising. It said, God's going to be with you. You're going to make a huge impact for Christ. You're going to win. I feel like I have this confidence in what God has walked me through, but there's still a little bit of that fear he's speaking to me of, oh my goodness, I've got a target on my back. I feel like I have this message that I need to speak out truth into people's lives. I also know that because I'm doing that, the devil's going to be doing his best to drag me down.
Why do you think that is?
Because he wants to take you away from your relationship with Christ. He wants to ruin it. I think it sickens him that you are going after God, obeying and seeking his will and helping others. I think he just wants to tear that down.
It's just fascinating to me. To date, there is no quote unquote cure for OCD. It's just something you have to suffer with, whether it be in silence or even verbally, to be brave enough to come out and say, listen, yep, I have it. There's no quote unquote, again, cure for it. Does that ever make you kind of question the Almighty to say, listen, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens me,
right?
Yet you can't heal me of this? Really?
Right.
Where does the devotion, does it ever stop? Does it ever question?
That's something I struggled with a lot during my second episode. I just couldn't believe it was back. I thought I'd solved the problem. Hopelessness just took over immediately. I just turned against God and was like, how could you create me this way? If you are a loving God, how could you create me with OCD? My thought was that I would look into other religions and find out about other gods, how I can go to heaven and to make sure that I wasn't going to hell. Because if there's not a loving God, then how do I know I'm not going to hell? So this was this new merry-go-round of fear. I cried out to God one night, okay, God, I don't know who you are. I don't know which God to believe. I need a sign. And I need a sign that you are God and that you love me and that you have a plan for me. The next morning I woke up and in my email inbox was a devotional. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. I acted out, was very much doing the devotional thing every day, reading the Bible, listening to Christian music. In my email, focus verse for the day was Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. While this didn't solve the fear and the worries immediately, it put a name on who was going to get me through my fight, so that when I looked back on the other side, I would know clearly who got me through it. I started believing that there was this God that loved me, claiming my fight over OCD. Now, I was still extremely sick with thoughts, and I was still dry heaving, just having a rough time. My next God moment was I would run out to the radio after dry heaving, and I would flip it onto my Christian radio station. And over and over and over again, Zach Williams' song, Fear is a Liar, would be playing at that exact moment. Now, when it happens once, you think, oh, that's really comforting. Thanks, God. When it happens 2, 3, 4 times, you start thinking, oh my goodness, God's speaking to me and he's telling me something. Well, what is this song saying? Oh, it's saying that fear is a lie. Oh, I don't have to listen to these lies that I'm believing. It is just a lie. I can claim that God has called this a lie and move on with that truth. That really started giving me hope that God is a loving God and that God is going to help me through my journey with OCD.
That is a powerful song. Fear is a liar. He will take your breath away. He will stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob you of your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fears in the fire, because fear, he is a liar. That's Zach Williams. He can write a song, that's for sure. Go back to the faith thing for me. There are millions of people out there that I would imagine that say, your loving God is so great. You sing about him. You worship him. You do all these amazing things. He can't even grant you one thing by getting rid of that OCD forever. Like, he can't just get rid of it. Can you pray more? Can you read more? Can you love him more? Maybe that's it, Moran. Maybe that's the issue, is you just haven't loved him enough for him to do something for you.
Okay, so here's the really cool part of my story.
That's what I wanted to hear. Let's hear it.
So God continued to fight for me, to show me his love and restore purpose to my life, because I'd lost sight of his love and I'd lost sight of his purpose. He showed me that he loved me so much, but he wasn't going to take away my OCD. He had a purpose for my OCD. He gave me a vision for a children's picture book about my OCD. I could see myself in my therapist's office comparing OCD to a monster. I got this picture of a monster in my head and a poem starts to form. I sat down and I wrote that poem in less than 30 minutes, which has never happened to me before. I've never just sat down and busted out a book. So this was truly God inspired. I knew that I needed to take this message and look into publishing it. Somebody else needed to hear this story. So I Googled publishers, and the first one I sent it to happened to be OCD herself and loved the story and loved the idea. She starts the publishing process, and there's going to be a fee, which could have been an obstacle. We're a one-income family. Income wasn't above and beyond, but it also wasn't lacking. We were right there. This was going to be a substantial fee. And God just came through one detail after another. He provided that money. He provided us money out of nowhere. We didn't expect this large sum of money. It was clear this is for the book. God restored my hope. And he showed me he loved me enough to give me a job and a purpose to help further his kingdom. And that job was to speak about my OCD. I think he can still use me in spite of my OCD. I also like to think he likes to use me because of my OCD.
So when you think about your faith and you think about those amazing ladies of the Bible, is there one that characterizes you maybe a little bit?
Okay, so I'm really into The Chosen. I don't know if you've watched The Chosen at all. Mary Magdalene, she was demon possessed. She had these awful, terrible demons just wreaking havoc on her. She just feels so unworthy. I feel like that was me. I just felt like I'd blown it so often. I've had these evil, terrible thoughts that I don't want nothing to do with, that can't be pleasing to God. I've doubted God. I've doubted his love for me. I've doubted that he is the one true God. Can God really still love me in spite of all that? I believe that with this book, he showed me, I still love you and I still have a purpose for you.
I do love The Chosen. So here's the struggle I have that I want to ask Megan about. And if I ever get the chance to, I still might. I'm going to ask you because you're in this moment. So you get Megan's question. definitions, if that,
Okay.
if that helps. But it's so similar. I feel like you guys would just be so best friends, like simpatico in some respects. You talk about the Bible, you talk about having a faith. Sounds like at times it was shaken, but maybe not completely destroyed like Jericho. It was strengthened more than destroyed. Jesus actually talks about, speaking of Matthew, he actually talks about in Matthew, he says this, he says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21, picking up there, it says, "You've heard it said to people long ago, you shall not murder. And I say to you, anyone who murders will be the subject of judgment. But I tell you, anyone who is angry with his brother or sister will be subject to judgment again." And he's talking about these thoughts that people have. He again says, you've murdered them in your heart, you've murdered them in your soul. I mean, is that ever just weighed on you?
No, not anymore. Because you're talking about the thoughts and had these awful thoughts. So are you judged because of them, right? I have this freedom. I used to doubt that God could forgive me. I had this point where I felt like, okay, Lord, I know you're God. Do I need to go confess my thoughts to like a priest or something? You know, that's not the denomination I am. Do I need to go do that? Or how do I get rid of this heaviness of these thoughts, the ugliness of these thoughts? He used the song, "I'm a child of God. Yes, I am." I was folding laundry with my daughter talking to me, and all of a sudden it got silent in our conversation. And all I heard was, "You're a child of God. Yes, I am." And I thought, oh my goodness, could that be God speaking to me? Continued to doubt with my fears. And do I need to go confess? And am I right with God? Do I need to do something? So I talked to my mom in the car one day, lots later on. It bothered me for a long, long time. And I asked her, God gave me this song, and it was just this one phrase from the song. Do you really think that's him, or was that a coincidence? She says, no, I think God was talking to you. I think that was the song, and that was the message that you were to receive. Still doubting, because like I said, this is a doubter's disorder. I thought to myself, well, you know, I'll hold on to what my mom says, but I'm not truly 100% believing it. I get back into the car to drive home, turn the keys in the ignition, and it's the same exact song. I am a child of God. Yes, I am. Now, believe it or not, I began to doubt again. I don't think so. You know, maybe that was really a really nice coincidence that I'd like to believe, because I want to believe, but I need to know for sure. So I'm reading the Bible. As I'm reading that there's no condemnation for men, it was bolded in my Bible. And that song played again at the same second that I'm reading those words. The next morning I wake up and my K-Love radio station says, this is the right song at the right moment for somebody out there. And they played the song again. Just couldn't let go that God was speaking to me, that I am a child of God. Yes, I am. I am right with God. I will see him in heaven, and I'm not going to be judged and condemned because of my thoughts.
Those K-Love stations, man, they're publicly funded. Come on, go support your K-Love station. All right, I'm not on K-Love. That's incredible. By Hillsong, it says, who you say I am, who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In the Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Powerful stuff. I love it, Moran. I love it. So you mentioned your kiddos, and there's three of them. That's it? Yes. That's all? We're done?
That's all.
We're not going for an even number? Come on.
No, I couldn't handle having another baby. Not with the OCD thought patterns. Sure. I had all my children before I had those OCD thought patterns of fearing of abuse.
Wow.
I don't even want to think about caring for a baby again. I just feel so at peace of where I'm at right now. I know my children were meant to be here. They all came before the OCD really hit me in my adult years. No more children. I've got 3 beautiful girls. Don't need a boy. I'm good.
Boys are fun, I've heard. We have a girl too. Send her down to you, okay? Just saying. She's 16. She's a built-in nanny. It's fine. It'll be fine. And she drives. It's perfect.
Hey, that sounds good.
Exactly. Right. She's on her way. What do you hope your girls learn from mom? Because they're watching.
Yes. I kept my OCD hidden from them, so ashamed of it, until I wrote my book. And then with my book coming public, I needed to have an explanation for them. So I used my book as a way to explain to them that mom has OCD. She has this little monster on her shoulder that speaks to her, whispers doubt to her. I named some of the doubts: washing your hands and fear of germs, or needing to check the door, or making a mistake. And so I used my book to explain to them that this is what I have. And I feel it has made them more empathetic. Instead of it being a shameful thing, it's matter of fact. Hey, this is what I struggle with, and I could really use your help right now. I need you to be calm calm. I need you to be quiet for a minute while I think. Made them more aware, more empathetic towards mental illness. That's what I wanted them to take from it. When I was in the thick of it, my fear was that my children aren't going to want anything to do with me. They're going to see me as a burden, not understand. They're not going to want to be around. It was such a lie. It's the complete opposite. I have a young one that has anxiety problems, and she comes to me and we're able to connect on a whole different level. I feel like that's what I want them to take from it. I want them to be able to talk about it openly, and I want them to have empathy.
Well, we're a big fan of empathy around here, so I love it that you're helping instill that in your girls. Mm-hmm. Do you think one day you'll ever not have OCD? Is that a thing? Can that ever happen?
I don't want to be caught off guard by thinking that I'm healed. I think what happened to me in this last episode was very healing, but I don't know that I'm healed. I'm not going to be surprised if it comes back. I don't think I have to be rocked so hard by it anymore. I think I can say, okay, I've been given all these promises by God that He is going to get me through. When I gave my testimony the first time, the Bible verse that He gave me was, God will work everything for good. The devotional was that day, whenever my life is turned upside down, the Lord will get me through it. So I have that promise for Him, and I know He's going to work whatever is in my life for good. So will it come back again? I'm not going to be surprised. I know I've got God on my side.
I think you're quoting Romans 8:28. So this is the living version. I like this version just because it's easy to understand sometimes. It's not all the these and thous and things like that. We know, like we have the assurance, we know God causes everything to work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them.
Right. Called according to their purpose. I feel like God has just given me that purpose to speak, to breathe hope into people who may be having these shameful, embarrassing, heavy, terrible thoughts that it's okay. God is not shocked. God knows, and He's there for you, and He will help you through it. Turn to Him. There's a Bible verse that says, Jeremiah 29:13, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. What a promise. Turn to Him. He wants to be found by you, and He will help.
So Bible camp story time years ago, and when I say years ago, I think I was in middle school at the time, we did a skit for the whole camp at the end of camp. The way the skit works is you have a person up on stage and you have another person under a blanket, and you can't see their face. The blanket is kind of draped over them from probably their head down to about their waist. And in this skit, you call up 3 people randomly that are planted in the audience. The audience doesn't know this. So they come up, they look under the sheet, and they faint. They fall down. They're very dramatic. Oh my gosh. Well, prior to them coming up and fainting, we'll call him the MC. Here I am. I have the ugliest guy in town. One look at this, you're going to faint. And so again, the 3 people come up that are planted. They look under the sheet, they faint, and it's very dramatic. And then they call up a 4th person that isn't in on the gag, just random person. And then as they open the sheet up, the person under the sheet faints because now that person is the ugliest person. How this relates to you, give me a moment. I will make this work for you. Is I was in that skit and I was the kid under the sheet. And I fainted. The moment I hit the ground, I had this conscious thought. Again, middle school thought here, middle school brain here even. Does this person know that it's a joke? Do they know that we're just kidding around? Do they know? I don't really think that they're the ugliest person. I think they're actually very nice. I don't know why we picked him.
Yeah.
All these thoughts start coming into my head. And after talking to Megan and even you today, I'm thinking, on some level, had OCD? I mean, I'm not trying to be in the cool kids club because it doesn't sound like a club I want to be a part of, by the way.
No.
It's not like Costco. I don't want to be a member there either.
You're right.
Nor OCD. So 2 places I don't want to be a member of. Help me with that.
Yes. So whenever I talk about, and I don't normally go into the abusive or the violent thoughts because that is just too overwhelming for people. I talk about my germs, a germophobic episode, or my need for things to be in order. And they're like, oh yeah, I can relate to that. I X, Y, or Z, or I need to do this, or I need to check the door, and kind of laugh to myself a little and think, you're so cute. That's really cute that you think that that's OCD, that because the intrusive thoughts don't ever go away. They hound you. You can't sleep. You can't eat. You can't function. So when it totally changes your whole entire life, then you'll know that you have OCD. OCD.
I think so many times people think, oh yeah, I have OCD. I'm a nut, have to have my certain thing this way and that way, like you're alluding to. That's not it. There's more.
Right.
There's so much more to that. Marin, help us with this. Where can folks go to get the book if they want to maybe educate their youngsters on OCD? Help them be like you're trying to do with your girls, trying to help them be more empathetic. Where's a great place they can go to get that book?
My book is on Amazon and it's called My Little Monster, a story about OCD. And I actually have a second story that I am working on publishing at the moment. It's about to go to print. And it is called The Very Best Me. And it gives a voice to the person who is struggling with OCD, talking to their support people around them and what kind of support would be helpful for them. You get all sorts of help when you are OCD. People encouraging you, be strong, or people encouraging you, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You can do this. You can move on. Just move on. It's not going to happen. When you're the person and you're in the thick of it, that's not what you need. You need to hear the truth. You need to hear encouragement. You need to hear, hey, I'm just going to be here. Just going to be here by your side. Whenever you need to talk, I'll reassure you as many times as it takes and to point you to the truth, to God. Have you taken this to God? Have you prayed about this? Hey, I'm praying for you. These are all things that this book encourages in ways to support the person who's struggling.
Outside of Christ, who has been the most influential person in your life?
My mother.
Talk about her and how she's helped.
When I was a child, she was the pilot of my plane. I would come to her for the magic words to release me from my OCD thought cycles. So, for example, I was afraid that my germs were going to kill someone when I was a child. I wouldn't share a snack. I wouldn't want to touch people. If I was handing something to somebody, I wouldn't want our hands to touch, or I wouldn't want to brush up against somebody because my germs might jump to them and it might kill them. I would come to her repeatedly for reassurance. And the words that she would say to me, they weren't quite getting through until one time I said, Mom, what would you do if your germs killed someone? And she said, well, at least I would know it was an accident. I would never intentionally try to kill somebody with my germs. And I thought, yeah, that's right. I would never intentionally try to kill somebody. I mean, look how careful I'm being. I'm washing my hands till they bleed. I'm not sharing food. I'm not wanting to touch them. Look how careful. Of course, I would never intentionally kill someone with my germs. That was able to release me from that thought process. My mom almost became my fake God. I needed to come to her when I was a child instead of to God. I had to learn when I was older, my thoughts were so bizarre with abusing my children. She could no longer prove to me that those thoughts were wrong. They weren't going to happen. I had to then turn to God for my help, and God became my pilot. She's been my therapist, basically. She's talked me out of things. Now I know if she were to die, which was one of my fears, I would still be okay. I have God.
I'm sure she knows that. All those things you just shared.
Yes, absolutely. And what? I freaked her out there for a while with all the talk about, Mom, what if you die? What if you die? What if you die? And she's like, oh my gosh, am I going to die?
Here's what I'm thinking as you're describing that. First off, that's terrifying to think that way. But I'm thinking as a little kid, nobody wanted cooties.
Right.
Like that must have been just awful for you. Well, I don't want cooties. I don't want those. My cooties could kill someone.
Right. I was not afraid of getting sick. There wasn't even a thought of getting cooties. It was all about giving cooties. I could not handle the thought of that happening.
That should be your next book.
Cooties.
Don't take my cooties. Don't take that on. Marin, you seem young. You sound young for those that are listening. You did forget one place that your book is available. It's okay. I get it. It's the pressure of being on the podcast. It happens. People get really nervous. They forget other places. There's this amazing place called opspodcast.com. There's a little tab that says books that I love. Your book is actually going to be up towards the top. Awesome. Not the tippy top, because that is, people have been lobbying for that top spot. And I say every time, there's just two guys that are just not going to take that spot away. Just sorry. It's just not. We are going to put it on our site just to help folks call some attention back to that. And I really want to connect you and Megan. I think Megan needs a podcast, and I think you need to be Megan's first guest. So I'm going to lobby for that for you. With that being said, let's do some silliness. You having kids, I'm guessing you've played at least your fair share of Candyland a time or two. Hopefully.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. Do you win constantly at Candyland, or do they beat you?
Well, I give it my 100%. And there are times, yes, where I lose an honest loss.
Told a girl recently who was in my 4th and 5th. She was younger at the time, and she smoked me at Candyland. And then I beat her the second time and she started crying.
Oh.
I reminded her of that the other day and she said, I never cried. I don't cry outwardly. I cry on the inside. And I'm like a winner, because you weren't winning that day. I'm guessing you're not the greatest sport aficionado, also not a big sports fan. I know you played volleyball.
I played volleyball.
Collegiately, at least.
Collegiately, yes. I played at Fresno Pacific University.
Fresno Pacific, not to be confused with Fresno State, the Bulldogs.
No. We were the Sunbirds.
What is a sunbird?
I'm not really sure.
You could ask me the same thing. What's a Tar Heel? We'll get back to that. We have new questions. I'm always excited about new stuff, new shoes, new questions, new guests, new friends. All new is fun. Specifically tailor-made questions for season 16. You might notice that they are flight-themed questions. So we're excited about that. So it's random. It's a North Carolina Cup. That is not my alma mater. It should have been my favorite school. And there's a lot of light blue in this room, as you can tell, and all over the place. And there's even a North Carolina flag. So anyway, so back to this. So I'm going to roll for you. Since you're still down in California and I'm here in Oregon, it makes it easier if I roll for you. So here we are.
Okay.
And it's random. That's why we do the rolling. And don't worry, you don't have to answer all 6. You just get a random number. It's like a lotto drawing.
All
better
right.
because you don't win money or prizes. It's a North Carolina logo, which really represents the number 1.
Okay.
That's what that is. Yeah, because it's a North Carolina die, of course.
Yes.
You know, you have to have a North Carolina die when you're a North Carolina themed show sometimes. So, all right. So here we go. This, again, new question. So here we are. The fun that is senseless. Question number 1 is this. Ranking these. So now we're going to do a ranking system. We've never done this before. So ranking these from worst. So number 3 being the worst. Number 1 being the best. Seems easy to do.
All right.
Taking off, landing, or during the flight. Rank them in your order, if you please.
Okay.
So again, 3 being the worst, 1 being the best thing about flying.
1, the best, is during the flight.
Okay.
2 would be landing, and 3 would be taking off.
See, I had those. Taking off used to be the worst for me, but now it's exciting. And I had landing probably the worst. Like, I'm okay landing during the flight. That's the worst for me.
Really?
Because I can't get up and move around.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of one of those
true.
people that I'm big, 6'2". It doesn't look like it on the TV, but I am. I'm tall. Tall for my age. I like to move around, and I can't. Because a lot of times they have that stupid fasten the seatbelt sign on. Stupid sign. Well, Marin, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate you. I'm glad that we got to meet. I'm glad that we got to connect. I am going to put you in touch with Megan. We've talked about her a ton of times. Guys, if you're wondering about our conversation with Megan, I'm going to include it in the show notes, so don't worry about that. Marin, last thought goes to you. What would you want people to know ultimately about OCD? Help us with that.
Oh, my goodness. I would want people to know that you may not even recognize or realize the person who is struggling. So just be kind, be gracious. If somebody is not able to focus or pay attention to what you're saying, there may be something else going on that you know nothing about. Just be patient.
I love that. Well, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, again, make sure your tray tables are back up in the upright position as we begin our descent into the beautiful Rogue Valley. I hope you enjoyed our flight today, your in-flight entertainment, courtesy of our new friend Marin. I hope you paid attention. I hope you listen. I hope that neighbor next to you on the window seat wasn't bugging you too much, or the kid kicking your seat didn't destroy your focusedness. I want you to center around this for a second. How hard would that be for you? A moment, put yourself in her flip-flops. How hard would that be? You can't even touch your kids? You can't even hug them? Listen, for some of you right now, you're like, hey, Neil, that's not that bad to imagine. My mom, my dad didn't hug. We didn't get the I love yous. Okay, you got me there. Just stop for a second and acknowledge that there is a true struggle here. There is a greater focus. The turbulence may have rocked her, but it didn't crash her plane. It could have, but she didn't allow that because she went right back to the source of where it all comes from. Just a thought for you as we make our final descent. By the way, stay tuned till next week. We got a doozy for you. It's going to be amazing. I hope you hang around for that. It's going to be fun. Can't wait for that. Remember this before you depart. Grab your items from the overhead compartments. Remember this. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you for flying with us, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.